Welcome. Bryce Coatney here from your TDOC legal team. We're going to talk just a little bit here about political activity in the workplace for state employees. The rules are pretty simple and straightforward, and we all just need to be mindful of them as we go about our daily work. If there's one big takeaway from the briefing we'll get here, it's that our workday is all about carrying on the public's business and not about serving any partisan political interest. We work according to the law, not the politics of the moment. We can do our work best if we do not have to put up with political manipulation, and if our resources aren't tied up with non-work-related activity. There's one federal law in place, and there are two Tennessee laws in keeping with that one, all of which serve to keep the public's business as free as possible from partisan political influence. These are the Federal Hatch Act, which has been around the longest, and then our Little Hatch Act in Tennessee, which came about in the early 1970s, and finally our Team Act of 2012 and its provisions for the makeup of the preferred service. The Federal Hatch Act is found at 5 United States Code Annotated, sections 1501 through 1508. The Hatch Act originally came about in 1939 out of bipartisan concern in Congress that President Franklin Roosevelt was possibly using federal workers to influence congressional elections. The law's original aim was to keep federal workers from mixing politics in with their job duties. In 1940, Congress extended the act to employees of state and local governments that receive federal funds. The federal law applies to those of us in state government who work on projects and programs that receive federal funding. TennCare would be a prime example for the state as a whole, but there are many, many more throughout the state, including here in the Department of Correction. And the reach of this law is pretty broad. If it applies to you, it applies whether you are present and reporting or off on leave. In brief, the federal law has three requirements for us. We don't use our positions or our authority to influence or affect in any way the outcome of an election. We don't in any way strong-arm our co-workers for political contributions. Those of us whose work is paid for from federal funds are not allowed to be candidates for partisan elected office. Here in Tennessee, we have our own Little Hatch Act, as many other states do. Ours is found in Title II of the Tennessee Code, which is all about the integrity of the ballot, and a big part of that is about setting limits on what role public employees play in partisan politics. In our law, pretty much everyone, including the governor and all elected officials and members of the governor's staff, are subject to two basic restrictions on political activity in the workplace. We are not to intimidate or coerce any other public employee for the purposes of influencing an election, a nomination for office, or a legislative measure. We are not to ask for or accept from our vendors or other entities having contacts with the state any payment for political purposes or campaigning. Our elected officials, the cabinet, and the rest of the governor's team all get a pass on the remaining provisions of our Little Hatch Act. All the rest of us who work in the executive branch, which is everyone else in the department apart from the commissioner, we are to keep partisan politics well separated from our work. This means, first, that we don't ask those doing business with or on behalf of the state for political contributions. We don't promise jobs or contracts or anything else of value to anyone else as a reward for political activity. Just as we don't promise rewards for political activity, we don't threaten consequences for anyone else for their political orientation. We are all expected, though, to keep the workplace free of partisan politics. This means that we don't keep campaign paraphernalia in the office. And we don't display campaign signage or displays on state property. You can have your candidate's bumper sticker on your car in the state lot, but that's as far as you'll want to go while on state property. Last points here about our little Hatch Act. While we're at work, we're expected to be working on the public's business. So unless there's something about our job duties that is necessarily connected to political activity, legislative business comes to mind, then we are not to be working on political matters during the time that we are being paid to work on the public's business. All of these provisions of our little Hatch Act are the exclusive domain of the legislature. That means that we can't use rulemaking or policy to further restrict our fellow workers and business partners who may have a political orientation different from our own. So, what are the consequences if we violate one of these laws? Where federal funding is involved, our federal partners might require that the offending employee be removed from that work. A violation of our little Hatch Act is a Class C misdemeanor. That can mean up to 30 days in jail, a $50 fine, or both. Finally, we need to mention a provision of Tennessee Code Annotated which serves to insulate preferred service employees from political intrigue. Tennessee Code Annotated 83306 is the section of the TEAM Act that governs how preferred service positions are filled and managed. It basically says that partisan politics can't enter into those decisions. Specifically, 83306 says that no one is to give any weight to political opinions or affiliations when making decisions about hires, retention, advancement, or discipline in the preferred service. Additionally, none of us in the preferred service is to demand political contributions from anyone else in exchange for that person getting or keeping employment or getting a promotion. With that, you have the foundation of what you need to know about keeping our work focused on the mission and not on politics. The political winds are always changing, but our mission does not. We are here to operate safe and secure prisons and provide effective community supervision in order to enhance public safety. Give us a call anytime you have a question about this subject, and thank you, meanwhile, for all that you do.